The Hesburgh movie comes from award-winning filmmakers Patrick Creadon and Christine O'Malley and producer Jerry Barca. Hesburgh examines the challenges and triumphs of one of the most influential leaders in American history. Father Ted Hesburgh is one of the greats here in the United States, and joining us now via Skype is the director of the film, Patrick Creadon. Thanks so much for being with us, Patrick.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Now, I understand you're a graduate of Notre Dame and certainly one of the nation's more prominent schools. Talk about putting this film together, getting this footage, putting the life of Father Hesburgh together.
It was no small task. He lived 97 very full years of life, and he kind of became almost this Forrest Gump type character, in the sense that he just sort of popped up everywhere in the second half of the 20th century. But he also, he also is almost like he's like an Indiana Jones character as well, because he was an incredible problem solver. He's very resourceful. He always seemed to get the job done well, whatever that job was. So for most people, the name Father Hesburgh is associated with Notre Dame. He was the president there for 35 years. Of course, he was a Catholic priest. What I think a lot of people don't realize is that he quickly became one of the most influential leaders in America that we've ever seen. And I'm very fascinated by this. I frankly was not drawn toward making really a Notre Dame story or even a Catholic story, frankly. What drew me into the story was the leadership qualities that he had and his role in American history. Those were the things that really drew me in.
Yeah, talk about that as well, too. I saw some of the clips from the movies, too. You get a lot of great footage of him. But talk about his personality and how you were able to capture that in this documentary.
He was a cool guy, and I mean that. I mean that in the most positive sense. He was cool and he was classy. He loved a good cigar at the end of the day. His favorite drink was Manhattan. He would have an occasional Manhattan. Certainly wasn't a heavy drinker. He just was someone who enjoyed that at the end of the day. That was his one vice, perhaps. And he was somebody that he was someone that people that he met, whenever he met people, they were really drawn to him. I think he was a kind person. He was very, very thoughtful, and he made people feel comfortable in whatever situation they were in. And the thing is, this is a man who was asked to play a major role in figuring out what civil rights policies should look like in our country, in determining how to deal with student protests during the height of the Vietnam War. He was asked to weigh in on immigration throughout his career. He was asked to represent the Vatican during nuclear non-proliferation talks in the 50s. I mean, it kind of goes on and on and on. But I think the reason he became such a worldly figure and such an influential figure, it was the small qualities that he had. That's the reason why his phone kept ringing throughout his life, for people seeking help.
Yeah, I actually saw a clip from the movie, too, and maybe if you could talk about how people perceived him, too. There was one quote there from one of the people that you interviewed, said some people thought he was a liberal, some people thought he was conservative. Talk about what people thought of him during his time.
Well, I think he throughout his work in public life, I think many people look to him as the conscience of the country. He became the person that people turned to when they had a really tough problem and they weren't quite sure how to proceed or figure out how to solve the problem. He's definitely someone who he had a way about him that made people feel really comfortable. He was very non-threatening, even though he was a very very big, very public figure. He had a nice touch with everyone, whether it was students at Notre Dame, people that worked on the staff, people that worked in even janitorial services. I mean, people all over the map, so to speak, were drawn to him and his personality.
And the movie's coming out May 3rd, I believe, too. Talk about who would you like to see come to this movie? What this movie can bring to somebody who comes to it and watches it, and how much more they can get out of that, and maybe you know, find out a little bit more about Father Ted.
I think anyone who's looking around the American landscape right now and has concern about the style of leadership that prevails at the moment, I think anyone who is concerned about the way that debate takes place within the public arena, let's say, I think anyone who has those concerns and wants to look for a better way to handle our conflicts in our society should come to our film, and they should bring a loved one, and they should bring someone who maybe they don't see eye to eye on certain topics, and come together and watch this film and learn about someone who had a very different leadership style. Along the way, you'll laugh, you'll cry a lot. It's a very emotional film. It's funny, it's sad, it's inspiring. It's a really great story. It's a great American story. But I think the takeaway is that we should expect more and we should demand more from our leaders. I think as a country, we are much better than what you see on the nightly news every night. Yeah. And I think in Father Ted, you have an example of someone who really, he knew how to lead because he knew how to bring people together, find common ground, and figure out what was the best way to proceed in any given situation.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Patrick, for being with us. The movie's Hesburgh. It comes out May 3rd nationwide. Catch it if you can. Thank you so much again, Patrick, for being with us.
Thank you, Kevin. It was great talking to you.